Regularly scheduled programs will not be seen tonight so that we may bring you the NFL football game live and in color.
Short drop, quick throw, left side.
Yes! Touchdown!
Al Harris, game-winning touchdown! Green Bay Packers!
Shotgun for Tim Tebow. Sets, throws, pass caught.
And there's Thomas out over the 45 midfield. Here we go. 40, 35, 20, 15, 10. Touchdown! Denver is over! It's over in Denver!
Welcome to Basically a Football Show.
Basically a Football Show, Week 17 in the NFL, and we had the semi-finals in the college football playoff for what they were on New Year's Eve. Watch ratings dive. I'm Zach, along with me is Greg. And Greg, football, you're in a new location. Football's in a new season. We're in the postseason in both NFL and college. It's a good time to be alive.
It really is. For me especially, I'm sitting here in lovely Ormond Beach, Florida, as opposed to the frozen tundra of north central Ohio. So I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. What did you think of the New Year's Eve? What was your New Year's Eve festivities like? Did you have a college football playoff party? Did you sit down and watch Alabama while watching the ball drop?
You know what I did, honestly, because I was in the middle of getting ready to move? I kind of watched the games and did stuff, but, it was New Year's Eve. You don't even think it was just a bad day to have those games. And then the games weren't very good on top of it, so I watched, but it didn't keep my interest very long.
No, we'll talk plenty about that when we get there, but the most important thing, of course, is the National Football League. Week 17, we racked up the regular season onto the playoffs. I think it'd be best if we skip through just the important games of Week 17. A lot of games that meant absolutely nothing.
I mean, you don't want to give a half hour to Saints Falcons? Come on.
We'll start. We'll get the Colts out of the way. The AFC South out of the way. Let's put it that way. So the Colts had to have 1,000 things happen for them on Sunday.
I called it the Apollo 13 scenario.
They had to have 1,000 things happen. Well, they also brought in Josh Freeman and Ryan Lindley to be the quarterbacks this week.
Ryan Lindley, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Freeman and Lindley both threw touchdown passes as the Colts beat the Titans 30-24 to finish 8-8 after a tumultuous season full of injuries. No Andrew Luck for majority of it. They finished 8-8 on the season. And unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Because the main thing that needed to happen was the Texans needed to lose, and Brian Hoyer came back and had a great day for Houston, leading the Texans to a 30-6 win over the Jags. The Texans clinched the AFC South as the division winners, something I don't think anybody could have imagined at the beginning of the season with the way the Texans were playing. And, at the beginning of the season, you assume a healthy Colts, but the Texans win what ultimately became one of the worst divisions of professional football we've ever seen.
Well, the funny thing about the Texans is that it wasn't maybe 6-7 weeks ago we were talking about them as being the worst team in football. Mm-hmm. The worst team. It was just like they're just god-awful. They have no quarterback. The defense isn't playing well. J.J. Watt had all but disappeared at that point. And I don't know what happened because you've still got a quarterback set up where it's Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett for a little while, Brandon Whedon dropping in there, and I forget TJ Yates, and somehow or another they just put it together and started playing good football, and here they are. And I think that they're I don't want to say they're dangerous, but they could be tricky with a home game in the playoffs. Yeah,
they're definitely more interesting than they were weeks ago. The defense is finally showing up. J.J. Watt got the cast off his broken hand and got a couple sacks against Jacksonville, so he looked fine. The offense looked good against, admittedly not a great Jacksonville team, but that's the kind of performance that you wanted to see from the Texans going into the playoffs. They won't have an easy task of it in the first round, but we'll get to that. They probably have one of the other teams nobody wanted to see, but yeah, the Texans wrap up the AFC South. AFC spots that were open. The Patriots had already clinched the AFC East. Looking to clinch the number one overall seed, and just kind of didn't show up in Miami. And the Dolphins pull off a surprising 20-10 win Brady gets a sprained ankle in the loss. The Patriots didn't look all that concerned. I think it almost looked like they were happy just to have the bye, that the number one seed didn't really matter to them.
Yeah.
And they just kind of slept walk through that game in Miami. And Brady says he's fine, that the ankle will be okay, but it's still a sprained ankle for a team that had some offensive struggles down the stretch.
Well, now a lot of it is obviously they're not healthy, the Patriots. They're down a lot of receivers and stuff, but something to think about with these guys. They're 2-4 in their last 6 games. Now,
yeah.
I mean, you can blame a lot of that on health and everything. I get that, but it's it's just they're not. They were a juggernaut early in the season, and it was kind of like, oh boy, here we go again with the Patriots. And I can't believe they let that number one seed slip away like that. It just blows my mind because they're playing the Dolphins. What do the Dolphins have to play for at this point? Absolutely
nothing.
Yeah,
not a thing.
And you're the Patriots, and I get that. Okay, you're good enough that you shouldn't have to worry about playing on the road, but still, if you can get that number one seed, I would think you would go all out to try to get it. And it was like, I listened to Bill Simmons, and he said that Peter King referred to them as playing the four corners offense, and that's kind of what it was, and I just don't understand it. But okay, I don't know that they scare me as much going into the playoffs as they would have if we'd been talking about them, say, 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. They they get the bye. Brady gets a week to rest that ankle, and you know how the Patriots work. They'll be fine. They'll get the home game in Foxborough, and depending on how the Broncos fare, they may not even have to go to Denver.
Right.
I don't even think the Patriots are that afraid of the Broncos. They did lose to them in overtime this year, but I don't think that's a big deterrent in the Patriots' mind. But
no, but think about it, though. If you're Bill Belichick and the Patriots, maybe you're not that afraid of Denver, but do you really want to roll the dice on it when you don't have to? That's my thing. I mean, I guess that the wiser choice looking long term was just to keep everybody healthy and get through this game, and we'll worry about the seeding later. But still, the Dolphins, I can't understand how you can only score 10 points against that team. I don't get it.
It's simply just they weren't putting the effort in, and
right.
That's fine. They were happy with the bye, and they got what they got. So, Patriots finished as the number 2 seed in the AFC. Elsewhere in the AFC East, the Jets. They were in position. All they had to do was win, and they're in. They're going to Buffalo, playing Rex Ryan and the Bills. And Ryan Fitzpatrick picked a pretty bad time to play one of his worst games of the season. The Jets hang tight with the Bills all day, but 3 interceptions by Fitzpatrick, a couple critical late in the game when the Jets were trying to drive, kills the Jets' season. They sputter out at 10-6, and the Bills win 22-17.
Second time this year they've beaten the Jets 22-17.
Yeah, and so with the Jets sputtering away their opportunity to win, they needed the Steelers to lose, and the Steelers were never going to lose this game with the way they played. They had a mission, and they accomplished it with a 28-12 win over the Browns. So the Jets fall out, the Steelers jump in. What a Jets way to finish the season for the New York Jets.
Totally Jets to do this, but if you're not a Jets fan and you look at it as just a football fan, the upside is that no one had the Jets going 10-6 this year. No one. I mean, we just didn't think in a million years they'd be this good. But the downside is, man, you were that close.
Yeah.
And again, all you've got to do is beat a team that has really nothing to play for other than revenge for their coach, essentially, and you couldn't get it done. And Ryan Fitzpatrick just we talked about it all season. All he had to do was not hurt them. And guess what? He went into this game and he hurt them, and they lose, and they're out of the playoffs. Simple as that. And the Steelers, on life support, I thought it was a crazy weekend playoff-wise because a lot of things that I didn't think were going to happen did. I thought the Jets were a lock. Mm-hmm. I thought, the Steelers had to have a couple breaks go their way, and they did. I thought that the Patriots would end up with the number 1 seed, and here we are, and it's just a completely different field than I thought we'd be looking at.
Definitely. It's disappointing to see that the Steelers jump back in it just because we know the Steelers. And
yep.
God, if there's a team that's ready to maybe make a run, maybe it's the Steelers coming out from behind. Although they didn't look impressive last week in that loss to Baltimore. But
no.
They look fine against the Browns, but who doesn't? So,
yeah.
Congratulations to the Chiefs. But yeah, it's 10-6, a great season. Like if you told the Jets fans at the beginning of the year, you're going to go 10-6, and you're going to have an opportunity to win and winning your way into the playoffs in the final week of the season, they would take that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I think also Jets fans probably say, maybe Jets fans wouldn't want that because they say, well, we're going to lose that game though.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think you're right. If you tell them at the beginning of the season this is what's going to happen, they're going to sign on for it in a heartbeat. But once you actually get there, it's like, okay, we said we'd be okay with this, but we're not okay with this.
I heard a discussion by on a different podcast by a Jets fan that was basically calling out Cleveland Browns fans, saying that everyone says that you're so tortured. Nobody looks at the Jets.
You really don't.
Tortured.
You don't
the
really.
Jets, the Jets are the Browns.
Well, here's the thing. With the Jets, I think with football fans in general, they look at it, the Jets have that one Super Bowl, and it's one of the most iconic Super Bowl wins ever. One of the most iconic wins ever, really.
True. But what are the iconic Jets moments?
Other than that? I can tell you one, but
Chad Pennington getting into the playoffs?
Yeah, but here's another one that people...
Brett Favre taking in the playoffs?
How about 1986 in the playoffs? They get in, and the Browns come back from a 10-point deficit with 4 minutes and 10 seconds. They'll take it to overtime and beat them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know that they're necessarily tortured. Is that,
I think of the Jets as Charlie Brown in the football.
Yeah.
Like, here's the Jets' opportunity. Oops.
Yeah, but with the Jets, it's like with the Browns, you've got the drive, the fumble, the kick six, the whole, the thing against Jacksonville with the beer bottles on the field and all that. The Browns seem like they're more tortured, but the Jets are every bit as inept, I think.
Yeah.
Overall.
No, definitely.
They're better record-wise, but the same thing. It's just not memorable. I mean, they don't go out and lose in a gut punch fashion. They just go out and lose to a team they had no business losing to, and not really dramatic fashion at all.
Definitely. So as we roll down, again, these are other things that made me kind of hopeful for the Colts for a minute. The Dolphins needed to beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
That happened, surprisingly. But then the Steelers beating the Browns was one of the things the Colts didn't need to happen. Also, the Bengals beating the Ravens 24-16. The Bengals, they win the AFC North. They get the number 3 seed in the playoffs. And they get to host a home game, and maybe Andy Dalton comes back, but it looks like we're still looking at Adrian McCarron in the first round for the Bengals with a 24-16 win over the Ravens.
And guess who the Steelers or the Bengals get to play in that first round?
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And for those unaware, this is the 10-year anniversary of the Carson Palmer game.
Yep.
Where the Bengals won the division. They had a home game against the Steelers. On the first play... I think it was the very first play, wasn't it?
Very first play for the Bengals, yeah.
He throws like a 76-yard touchdown pass and tears his ACL.
Yep.
Yeah, just so...
Something like that. It was yeah. And you know what, too? The thing about that is that was probably the best Bengals team I'd ever seen.
I know.
They were a serious Super Bowl contender that year. And that had to just be... you talk about a gut punch, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, 10-year anniversary of that.
We'll break down the matchups in a bit, but if you're a Bengals fan, you're shaking in your boots thinking about history.
Yep.
Let's see, rolling on down. Washington finishes off their season 9-7 with a 34-23 win over the Cowboys. Again, another record we didn't think we'd see with the NFC East team finishing over 500.
Yeah.
But good job by the Skins.
They were the only ones too, right? The only team over 500 in that division. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because the Eagles 7-9, Giants 6-10, and of course the Cowboys, who they beat, fall to 4-12. Cowboys will be the number 4 overall pick in the drafts. And I should have mentioned when the Colts beat the Titans, that clinched the number 1 pick for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, we can talk about that as we go along, but I think there's going to be some wheeling and dealing with that number 1 pick.
Yeah, because it's not a strong draft. There's no clear must-have player, so this is definitely one of those years where you can see some movement at the top.
But in that game, how about Kellen Moore, former Boise State Bronco?
Yeah, maybe a guy I think this is what they wanted to see, though, when they started playing him late in the season. You knew the season was over. You want to see what you have from your quarterback, and didn't do too bad, 435 with 3 TDs.
Yeah, and this Washington team, it wasn't like they showed up and just, kind of sleptwalked their way through this game. They came to play, and he still had a pretty good game against a pretty solid team, so... I think he secured a spot on their roster next year, probably. I don't think he's going to start or anything, but I think he's not. If any case, if he doesn't stick with the Cowboys, somebody's going to give him a look, I'm sure.
Somebody will give him a look, or at the very least, they think, well, if Tony goes down again, if Tony Romo goes down again, maybe we do have a competent backup to lead us through.
Right.
But, so interesting look there for the Cowboys. The other thing in the NFC East, the Eagles get a 35-30 win over the Giants. Without their head coach, Chip Kelly, fired
5 minutes after we signed off last week.
Not even 5 minutes after we signed off on our show last week. I got the ESPN notification that Chip Kelly fired before Week 17. So the Eagles, well, first off, the Eagles win. so they don't have to go to London. The Giants will go to face the Rams in London next year. And the Giants also losing their head coach, Tom Coughlin, as he resigned the other day. But Chip Kelly flames out in Philadelphia. That's pretty surprising. I think we kind of thought maybe he'd get fired, but before the last week of the season is a little – it's a shot.
When they were playing poorly back, I don't know, week 6 or 7, and I said, I don't know that he'll finish the season, I meant that maybe after their bye week or something, they'd get rid of him. I didn't think he'd make it to week 16 and then get fired. I thought, if he's made it this far, they'll wait. I didn't think he'd survive the season either way. But for them to take him out a week before the end of the season, that seemed to me like there was more to that than just, we want to move in a new direction. That seemed almost personal, like we're gonna humiliate you, kind of like when USC dropped Lane Kiffin off at the airport and said, "See you later." So. Well,
the story, as I understand it, was Chip went into the owner's office, Jeff Lurie, they were discussing next season, and they wanted Chip to relinquish his player personnel duties and just be the head coach. Chip vehemently said no, and they fired him. I've also heard, a whole bunch of other stories coming out this week that Chip moved the Eagles' Christmas party, and petty stuff like that. And of course, people always say the things where he wouldn't say hi to people in the hallway or whatever. Just it's one of those things where it doesn't seem like it really worked in Philly, and I don't know if that's Chip Kelly's fault or the Eagles, or if it's just a bad situation from the start, but. Chip Kelly out as Eagles head coach.
I think with him I've heard a lot of people discuss this, and I think I agree with it, is that it was more of a personality thing than a coaching thing because he had, 2 10-win seasons before this year?
Did they win 10 last year?
Yeah, 2 years in a row. And then, this year, 7-9 is not terrible. And the thing that I started thinking about, and I thought, is he a bad coach, or is it just a matter of he didn't have a quarterback? And if you look at it, we had Sam Bradford. I don't know who.
Foles
last
year.
But a bunch of he never really had a good quarterback in that system. So I'm curious to see if he'll get another shot in the NFL. If I were him, I'd go back to college where you don't have to be Mr. Personality. You don't have to deal with all. These are college kids. It's a different thing. You can handle them differently than you can NFL players. But if I'm an NFL team, though, I might look at it and go, if we can talk to him and say, look, you work on your personality a little bit, we'll give you another shot. I think I'd give him another shot at the NFL because I don't think he did that bad, really, considering what he had to work with.
Right.
At quarterback,
We always reference the Bill Simmons podcast because it's something we both listen to, and you listen to it. You already mentioned it in this podcast already. But something else that Simmons brought up, I don't know if it was with somebody, I forget who he was talking to, but basically Chip Kelly, he equated him to Bill Belichick in that they both have the same kind of mannerisms where they're standoffish and weird and try to do these weird things with the system or whatever. But in Bill Belichick's second season, when he's benching Drew Bledsoe and playing Tom Brady and et cetera, they go and win a Super Bowl.
Right.
And if Chip Kelly in one of these first 3 seasons that he's been there, if he'd won a Super Bowl, he'd still be there.
Sure.
Right? You look at the 2 10-win seasons, make the playoffs, that's good stuff, but he didn't do anything, and he rubbed people the wrong way. And I really think what Chip Kelly's problem was with the Eagles too, beyond the personality, his personnel decisions were awful.
Right.
Just flat out awful.
Yeah.
You look at the changes to the offensive line and trying to get these guys into your system. Systems don't work in the NFL.
No.
They just don't work like that. In college, when you can actively recruit players that fit your system, it works. But in the NFL, you have to adapt to what you have, and he tried to mold the team in his image, and it just flat out didn't work. And supposedly he still wants to be in the NFL. He's trying to look for more NFL jobs. I still think he'd be better off by trying to find a college job or waiting a year and maybe going to LSU if they get rid of Les Miles or something like that. Where he can ultimately work at his best when he's in total control of the organization.
Right.
But I don't think his shtick or his mindset works in the NFL capacity.
No, and you brought up Belichick as a comparison, and the difference between Chip Kelly and Bill Belichick is that I've seen Bill Belichick be funny. I've seen him be friendly. I've never seen that with Chip Kelly. It's just like, Belichick, people will tell you that Belichick has a side that you never see in his public persona, where he can be, a fun guy. He can goof off and stuff like that. You never heard that about Chip Kelly ever at any point. And then a lot of people brought this up too. The whole thing with his name's escaping me now. The Riley Cooper thing. Mm-hmm. That really he lost a lot of the black players on the team with that. And I just don't think he's a good. I think you're right. He's not a good fit for the NFL. It's just there's too many different personalities. You don't get the luxury of recruiting specifically to your system in the NFL. You just can't do that. So if I'm him, I go back to college. I think I'd look at a job that there's going to be a lot of schools out there that are going to want a guy like him, and wait and see what opens up next year. Maybe take another crack at college is what I would do.
Yeah, I think that'd be his best going. On the other side of the field, Tom Coughlin let go by the Giants, or not let go.
He got resigned, is what I call it.
Yeah, the way it was worded was he was going to resign before the team asked him if he wanted to stay. I think it was probably one of those things like you can either retire or we'll fire you. Mm-hmm. And he's not retiring. He still says he's open to jobs, looking for some place to go. But I really thought that this year more than most looked like he was on his last legs there, and I think this is good for him to get out of there.
If I were him, what is he, 72, 73, something like that, 74 maybe?
Pretty old, yeah.
I mean, why not? You've won 2 Super Bowls. You were the architect of a Jacksonville team that was, believe it or not, good at one point.
Yeah.
You did pretty well way back at Boston College when you were there. Why not just say, you know what, I've had probably a Hall of Fame NFL career. Let's call it a day. I mean, I don't blame the Giants. I don't think it's Coughlin's fault that they were this bad. I don't think he had anything to do with it. But John Madden's always said, 10 years and that's it. No matter how good things are going, a coach is good for about 10 years. I don't know how long Coughlin's been with the Giants, but I think it's just a matter of where the team just needed to change the scenery, and it was as simple as that. I don't think it makes him a bad coach or anything. It was just you just need to make the change, and I think that's what the Giants did. I don't think he resigned. Just woke up one day and said, I'm done. I think it was one of those, if you don't resign, we're going to fire you. And I think he took the option of resigning.
Yeah. So, I thought he had a great career with the Giants. Obviously, the 2 Super Bowls.
Right.
Good coach. Just eventually, like you said, you run your course. And I think that definitely happened with the Giants and Tom Coughlin. Scrolling on down, going to the afternoon games. The Carolina Panthers clinched the number 1 overall seed in the NFC with a 38-10 win over the Buccaneers. The Panthers came in and wanted to win that game. They wanted that number 1 seed for sure. And I think that's a good thing to play all the way through, especially when you're going to have that bye week. And Cam Newton continues to, I think that, really make his stamp on the MVP case with a game like this, especially with the way Tom Brady faded down the stretch.
Yeah.
I think Cam Newton, with a 15-1 season for the Panthers and the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, is your MVP.
Yeah, I think he's got to be at this point because you're right. Brady, maybe through no fault of his own, just lack of weapons, faded down the stretch. And Cam Newton, 15-1 with a team that went, 7-8-1 last year?
Yeah, right?
I think probably the best team in the NFL right now. So, these guys just have been amazing all season, but I think he's the MVP of the league. And I like that they lost the game because now they don't have to concentrate on the undefeated thing anymore. And right now, if I had to make a pick, I'd say that they're my Super Bowl champions, but we'll see how it goes. But real quick on this game, too, Jameis Winston had a pretty good season for his first year, I think, in the NFL.
Yeah, I think if we're talking like offensive rookie of the year, I think you got to go with Jameis Winston. Again, after week 1 doesn't mean anything.
Nope.
Because we saw them play the Titans, and Jameis Winston looked god-awful, and Marcus Mariota threw 5 touchdowns, and he was amazing. The Buccaneers finished 6-10, and the Titans are sitting there with the number 1 overall pick again.
Yep.
So I think Jameis Winston's going to be a decent NFL quarterback if things keep up this way and he can keep his head on his shoulders. And I think the Buccaneers are building something nice there that maybe they'll be able to contend maybe next year, depending on the way that NFC South breaks down, because that's always a very volatile division. Or at least in a couple years, for sure.
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers are a couple, maybe 3 players. They're pretty good, but you can see that it's just they don't have the depth. They don't have quite the talent to finish it. They had moments where they looked like a pretty solid football team, and I think they're headed in the right direction.
Yep. Also in the NFC, once the Panthers started to go up really big and the Cardinals were struggling early on, they rested their guys the rest of the way. And the Seahawks rolled to a 36-6 win in Arizona. The Cardinals finished 10-6. The Seahawks, finished 10-6. The Cardinals finished 13-3. Cardinals are the number 2 seed in the NFC, and the Seahawks finish as the 6th seed in the NFC.
The Cardinals 13-3 they go this year, and that's only good for a number 2 seed. That's how good the Panthers were this year. And the Cardinals, again, getting lost in the whole Panthers shuffle, it's this Cardinals team that's a really, really good football team. And if justice prevails in this league, it will be the Cardinals versus the Panthers to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC because they are just two incredibly good football teams.
Yeah, a lot of people looked at this game against the Seahawks and said that, oh, man, what happened to the Cardinals? They got just demolished. As soon as they saw that the Panthers put up 24 points in the second quarter, and they were struggling a little bit early, the Cardinals were, and they were down, the Panthers were up. They said, screw it. We're going to put in Drew Stanton and just hope nobody gets in. Because the big thing that happened to the Cardinals last year was Carson Palmer getting injured.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to risk him in a game that's ultimately going to mean nothing. You're not going to fall to the 3rd seed. If Carolina held on to win like they did, you weren't going to catch the number 1 seed, so why bother? And so I think it was a good move by the Cardinals. Don't look into the score. Don't even look into the game. I think if these two teams played for something on the line,
definitely.
If they could in the playoffs, then it would be a different result altogether.
Well, and I think, too, going into it, you look at who the Panthers are playing, the Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. The Cardinals are already like, look, it's going to take a miracle at this point for them to lose this game. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Once they saw that the Bucs were out of it, that's it. You know why? You're right. Why take the chance? So I don't read anything, and it's people like, the Seahawks, blah blah blah, and the Cardinals. Look what happened. Nothing happened here. They just said, you know what? You're right. We're not going to risk it, and that's that. We're going to take the number 2 seed, be happy with it, and move along. So I don't read anything into it either. I know the people like, Seahawks, look out, here they come again. I don't buy that for a second. Not to say the Seahawks aren't going to be good, but
this is the same Seahawks team that lost to the Rams at home last week.
Right. Let's not put more into this than is actually there with this game. I agree with you there. There's nothing to see here, basically.
Yeah. From the NFC West to the AFC West, the Broncos and Chiefs, the division's still up in the air going into the last week of the season. The Broncos hosting the Chargers at home. They just need to win, and they would clinch it. Brock Osweiler didn't look good early. Threw a touchdown early, but had a couple turnovers. The offense wasn't chugging along. It was 7-6 at halftime. They go into the third quarter. Things still aren't running along yet for the Broncos. So they bench Brock Osweiler, and back for the triumphant return, Peyton Manning to a thunderous applause at Mile High Stadium, or Sports Authority Field at Mile High, excuse me. And the Broncos surged back to beat the Chargers 27-20, clinch the number 1 seed in the AFC, and win the AFC West with the win over the Chargers.
First off, looking at this game, going into it, the Broncos could have ended up as the number 5 seed and a wild card team, or, I think most people are looking at best number 2 seed behind the Patriots. And they went from literally almost being a 5 seed to the number 1 seed in the AFC, which I just think is amazing. But now you've got the question, if you're Gary Kubiak, who do you start next week? Peyton, or do you go back to Osweiler again?
It's Peyton's team now.
I think so too. I mean, how do you not start him now?
No, I was talking to a buddy of mine who works in the news in Colorado, works in Colorado Springs, covered a ton of Broncos games, has a feel up there, and he was saying that the only way Brock would be starting in the playoffs is if he didn't get pulled. He had to not get pulled the rest of the way for him to not beat the starter. And really, he came out and played well against the Patriots and had a good couple weeks. But Osweiler struggled over the last few games. He hadn't shown that same kind of pop that you saw in the first couple of games. And maybe it was one of those things where you don't want to say beginner's luck, but it's a new thing. And in the NFL, teams adjust quickly, and teams finally adjusted to what Brock Osweiler was doing, could contain him. And Peyton still isn't at his physical best, but still knows the game better than anybody, and was pretty can be pretty pinpoint when he needs to be. And I think if the Broncos are going to win a Super Bowl, it's probably going to be with Peyton Manning. We thought the world of Osweiler when he first came in, but over the couple of weeks, he had come back down to earth.
Well, you see it in baseball all the time. Kid comes up from AAA and he just knocks the cover off the ball for a week.
Yeah.
And then the pitchers get the read on him, and all of a sudden he's hitting 140. Same thing with Osweiler. I mean, it doesn't take an NFL defense long to catch up. I mean, Chip Kelly, we saw it with him. Every system that's come along, the Wildcat was all the rage. And it's just the same thing with Osweiler. Once it was like, okay, you didn't know his tendencies or anything the first couple of weeks. But once you got that figured out, word gets around, yeah. So if I'm the Broncos, look, I think that Osweiler has got some potential. But you're the number one seed in the playoffs. You have Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I think it's a no-brainer. You got to go with Manning at this point. And you know that Osweiler's there in the bullpen if you need him. Simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. You start with Peyton, and if he does struggle, then you put Osweiler back in and see what you got. But it's Peyton's team again, and they'll be the number one seed. They get the bye. The Chiefs, even though they won 23-17 over the Raiders for their 10th straight win. They're the number 5 seed. They get to travel to Houston, and while it might not be the most attractive, and it's the early game on Saturday, I kind of like the way the Chiefs are playing right now. They're rolling along at a good clip.
Yeah, they've won 11 games in a row. 10 in a row.
10 in a row. 10 in a row.
Yeah, and this is another one too. I mean, they really didn't. I mean, they still had a shot at the division title and all that, but they just, you look at them. They're not. You think, what am I missing here? They're not terribly impressive, but they just keep winning. Mm-hmm. And Alex Smith doesn't make mistakes. And the thing is, though, with this Houston Chiefs, I mean, of all the teams, I didn't want the Chiefs to play. It might have been the Texans on the road because that's just one of those. That could be a weird game, but. I think the Chiefs had a much better year than we thought they were going to have too. I mean, 11-5. Yeah. I would have never guessed that, especially when they started out 1-5 for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I think maybe we thought they could have got back up here, but once you start 1-5, that's nobody pulls out of that.
I think I heard they were the third team ever to start 1-5 and make the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, but are they I don't think any other one of them 5 teams has won 10 in a row.
No, I can't remember anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So good job by the Chiefs. They roll in as the 5 seed in the AFC. Into the NFC, only one spot left unattended. The NFC North champion, your Green Bay Packers, Greg, hosting the Vikings on Sunday nights. And Teddy Two Gloves Bridgewater, as I guess is his new nickname, looked pretty good as the Vikings beat the Packers at home for a 20-13 win on the road in the NFC North title. Packers fall down to the number 5 wildcard spots and will play at Washington, and the Vikings will host the Seahawks next week.
This Packers team, they started the season 6-0, and since then they've been 4-6. This is just not a good football team. It's just as simple as that. Aaron Rodgers, they can't run the ball. No one can get open, and Rodgers is running for his life constantly, and it's just as simple as that. I think if right now I favor Washington in that playoff game. I mean, the Packers, they are, I mean, to be completely blunt about it, one of the worst playoff teams I've seen come along in a while. It's kind of amazing that they even got this far because they're just not very good. They've got a great quarterback, but nothing to work with,
Yeah. What do you think of your irrational confidence Vikings? 11-5.
I had them going maybe 10-6, 9-7 at a wild card to win the division. Wow. It's nice to have one of my irrational confidence deals pay off finally, but I knew this team was pretty good.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson ends up leading the NFL in rushing this year. Bridgewater, not the best quarterback in the league, but certainly one of the better performances he's in his early career.
Yep.
And the defense showed up at plenty of times this year too. So the Vikings are a complete team. Make no mistake about it. They've risen pretty quickly, but they're just as good as anybody else in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that they're certainly capable of beating anyone. I like their chances better, say, against Seattle than I would against, say, Arizona or Carolina, but they're capable of it. And everybody's like, well, the Seahawks beat them pretty bad when they came to Minnesota the last time, but that's okay, that's fine. It's hard to do that to a team 2 times in a row. I think as the Packers and Vikings proved. I mean, the Packers went to Minnesota and just beat the daylights out of them, and look what happened at Lambeau. So this Vikings team's fun, man. They're going to be interesting, and they're a lot better than I thought they were going to be this year, and I thought they'd be pretty good. So it's going to be interesting to watch them play the Seahawks next week.
Yeah. So the season ends, and the playoff standings end up as such. In the AFC, the Broncos are the number 1 overall seed. They get the first-round bye. The New England Patriots also get a bye as a second seed, both teams 12-4. The Bengals win the AFC North at 12-4 as well, but they get the third seed. They will host the number 6 seed Pittsburgh Steelers. Houston wins the AFC South as the number 4 seed at 9-7. They will host the 11-5 Kansas City Chiefs. In the NFC, Carolina Panthers 15-1. Best record in the league, best record in the NFC for the first-round bye. Arizona also gets the first-round bye, 13-3 overall. Minnesota wins the AFC North, as we just said, 11-5 on the year. They will host the 10-6 Seattle Seahawks, the number 6 wildcard spot. And Washington finishes the season 9-7, NFC East champions. They will host the number 5 seeded Green Bay Packers, finish up 10-6. So looking ahead to this weekend's playoff matchups. On Saturday, we have the two AFC matchups on Saturday. Chiefs Texans at 1:20 Pacific, 4:20 Eastern Time on ESPN/ABC in Houston. Chiefs are 11-5, Texans 9-7. Kansas City starts out as a 3.5-point favorite. Winners of 10 in a row. What do you think of the AFC wildcard matchup there, Greg?
This game has upset written all over it. Where the Texans have certainly enough defense to shut down the Chiefs' offense, no question about it. The key to this with the Texans, like it's been all year, is the quarterback play. If Brian Hoyer, who I guess is getting the start, if he can play pretty well, I like the Texans' chances a lot in this game. But then again, I've underestimated the Chiefs all season, but if I had to make a pick right now, I think the Texans win this game. I do. I think the defense will shut down the Chiefs' offense, and Hoyer just has to play well enough not to kill them, and I think they win the game. So I'm going with the Texans in this one.
I'm going to go Chiefs. I like the Chefs in that one. Just they're rolling too good. I like Alex Smith when he's managing the game well is great. The defense has showed up big for the Chiefs this year. I think they could shut down anything Brian Hoyer can throw at them.
I hope you're right, because I want the Chiefs to win, but like I said, this one just has like that, the early Saturday game never goes the way you want it to. It just never does, and I think the Texans win. But
yeah, and of the 4 matchups, this was the easy pick for the Saturday, the early Saturday matchup.
You called it last week. You said that whatever the Texans, whoever they played, that would be the early game on Saturday. Yeah. Well,
and I think the Chiefs have been in the early game a lot too lately, but I think the Texans, in all 3 of their playoff appearances now, have been the early game. The twice against the Bengals, and now this time against the Chiefs. So. Yeah. This is only the Texans' 3rd playoff appearance.
God, doesn't it seem like they've been there more than that? I mean, because but I guess not, huh?
No.
Wow.
So I got Chiefs. You have Texans in the first matchup.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to go back to. I'm changing my pick. I'm going with the Chiefs because I started thinking it through. I've taken the Chiefs over the Texans. What was I thinking there?
In the evening, 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific, on CBS, the Steelers, 10-6 with Ben Roethlisberger at the helm, go against the Bengals, who may still have A.J. McCarron at quarterback. Maybe Andy Dalton comes back, but that's a big maybe. Looks like A.J. McCarron's still going to be the starter for the AFC North champions, 12-4 Bengals. Pittsburgh opens as a 2.5-point favorite on the road in Cincy.
I'm taking the Steelers in this. I think the Bengals are still the Bengals. They didn't get a bye. So here we go again. I hate to say it, but what'll it be, 7 times straight now that they'll lose? And I just like the Steelers in this. I think that if Dalton comes back, he's not going to be 100%. I have no faith in A.J. McCarron. And the Steelers have shown when they want to play, they're one of the best teams in football. So I'm taking Steelers all the way in this.
Yeah, I like the Steelers too. If A.J. McCarron wasn't the starter for the Bengals, maybe I'd buy them a little bit more if it was Andy Dalton in there. But the Steelers are just too battle-tested, and the defense is still fine. And Roethlisberger has been throwing the ball pretty well with Antonio Brown, and it might end up being a shootout, if anything. But I don't like A.J. McCarron at quarterback for the Bengals in this one. And if it matters, the forecast is 51 and rainy in Cincinnati.
I think it will matter, but I think another thing, too, with this game is that the Steelers don't come into this game going, my God, we've lost our last 6 playoff games in a row.
Yeah.
That's not hanging over their heads. Where the Bengals, that's, it's there. They can say that it doesn't matter, but it's there.
To the players, it may not matter, but I can guarantee you everyone else in the stadium knows.
Yep.
And there's just, and you well know, I know as well as you probably do, You walk into a stadium and you just know when they have that collective fear of, oh, this isn't going to go well today.
And, now a lot of the guys on this team weren't there when this started 6 years ago, but some of them were. And the players do think about it. The coaching staff's going to think about it. It's there. I mean, it may not be as big as we think it's going to be in their minds, but it's still there.
Marvin Lewis knows.
Yep.
He sure as hell knows.
Yep.
So we'll see how that one goes. On to Sunday, where you get the two NFC matchups, and on a balmy 1 degrees at TCF Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. The NFC North champion Vikings host the 10-6 Seahawks. Seattle opens as a 5-point favorite on the road at the Vikings. 1 degree again in Minneapolis on Sunday.
I tell you what, if it's going to be that cold, I think I'm going with the Vikings in this because
I do too.
Now look, no one is quote unquote used to playing in that kind of weather. But the Vikings have a little more experience at it because they played a game that was really cold a couple weeks back. The Seahawks they don't know what to do in this kind of weather. I'm going to take the Vikings just on the weather alone in this one, I think.
I like the Vikings. I liked the Vikings before, and knowing the weather, I like them even more. And again, this just makes me so sad that they're going to go into that glass house next season rather than playing outdoors. 1 degree in Minnesota for a playoff game, that's great. That's fantastic. That's football. I love it. But, I mean, the Seahawks aren't used to bad weather either. I mean, Seattle's not exactly Florida. But
they don't play in anything like this.
No, not the cold, but they can get wet and stuff. But I don't know. I don't like the way the Seahawks played last week against the Rams at home.
Yeah.
In a game where, if they kept winning, it might have meant something. They could have been playing in Washington rather than Minnesota. Yeah, they beat the Cardinals up pretty good, but again, the Cardinals weren't playing anybody.
Right.
And yes, the Seahawks were hotter than anybody for a 5 or 6 week stretch there, but that's not now.
No.
And I like the Vikings in their first playoff home game in a long time. I think the first time since Brett Favre, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the Vikings at home.
Yeah, and for those of you that aren't old like I am, you get your one shot here to see what Minnesota football used to be like back in the 70s this weekend.
That's true.
Yeah.
And then the later game in Washington or Landover, Maryland. 55 and rain it'll be for the Packers and Washington at FedEx Field. Green Bay opens as a 1-point favorite, which based on the way betting patterns work, everyone's going to bet the Packers.
That's just America loves the Packers bet there.
That's either a pick'em or the Redskins slightly.
Right.
But, Kirk Cousins is playing some of the best football out of anybody in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, I heard that he was the number 1 rated quarterback over the last 8 or 9 weeks or something like that.
No, Kirk Cousins had a better season than Aaron Rodgers did.
I don't doubt it.
To yardage and completion percentage and things like that. So, I mean, you want to think that the Packers have the pedigree in Aaron Rodgers, and they've been here before. They can turn it on when the playoffs come around. But if we're just basing it on this season and what we've seen and what these two teams are, I might like Washington a little bit.
I like Washington a lot in this game. The Packers. You look at this team. They started out 6-0. They've been 4-6 since then, which is only slightly better than a team like the Cleveland Browns or some of the dregs of the league. They aren't a good football team. They've got Aaron Rodgers and what else? James Starks takes great pictures when he runs the ball. I mean, if you ever noticed that. But if you look at a picture of James Starks running the football, it's like the perfect running back. Look. And that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody gets open. They can't protect Rodgers. And this Washington team they're not bad. And again, like I've said for the past 4 or 5 weeks, they just seem like they want to do this. And I think the Packers are just like, we don't know what our problem is, but let's just end it and start over again next year.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Washington. Not as confidently as you, but I'm gonna go with Washington in this one too. So we both agree Vikings and Washington in the NFC, both on the Steelers, and then we split Chiefs-Texans. What do you think of the playoffs as a whole? At the beginning of the season, if you remember, my Super Bowl pick, if I may say so myself, was Indianapolis and Dallas. Don't think this is going to happen.
I had Indy Green Bay.
So based on the field we have right now, what is your Super Bowl?
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh, boy, it's tough to pick against the Panthers. Mm-hmm. I think they're the best team, but I really, really like this Arizona Cardinals team. So
Me too.
I'm going to take them out of the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
And in the AFC, I'm going to roll the dice here. I'm going to say the Kansas City Chiefs make their first Super Bowl since Super Bowl IV out of the AFC.
Yeah, I like the Cardinals a whole lot too. The defense is ferocious. The offense is. This is if you look at the stats, this is the best season Carson Palmer's had.
Yeah.
In his professional career, which is insane to think after a second knee surgery last year. The same injury that he faced in that Steelers-Bengals game we talked about. I got the Cardinals out of the NFC, and then in the AFC, I want to pick the Chiefs or the Steelers, but I don't think you can pick against the Patriots until they lose.
That's true.
So I got to go Patriots-Cardinals in Santa Clara, and I like the Cardinals.
I think I'm with you on the final pick. I think the Cardinals are going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
they're just a really good team.
I like the Cardinals at the end of the day.
Yeah.
As we saunter our way out, let's look through the rest of the coaches that have been canned, or at least the open spots.
Well, let me ask you a question. Are you surprised that Chuck Pagano kept his job?
I'm not surprised. I don't think I'm surprised, because I think you can look back at this season and look at all the variables that went into it and say to finish 8-8 when you finish the season with Ryan Lindley and Josh Freeman as your quarterback isn't half bad. What I am surprised by on the Colts end of things is giving the GM Ryan Grigson an extension. Because one of the reasons that they weren't prepared for this, or that they were as bad as they were during stretches, is because he hasn't done his job with the rest of the team. The offensive line still sucks, the receivers can't get open, they can't run the ball, and the defense is always spotty. So I don't know why you give a net GM the vote of confidence. I would bring in a new GM, and I'd still give Chuck Pagano the shot. I don't know if he earned a 4-year extension, but in the Colts' defense too, Pagano was the fallback. They were talking with Sean Payton. They were trying to work a deal out to get Sean Payton from the Saints, and when those talks broke down, they then handed out the extension to Pagano.
Well, see, now that's the thing, though. Okay, I don't like that. Like, you've made it very clear, we're only keeping you because we couldn't get our other guy.
Yeah.
I don't know how. If I was Pagano, I'd be like, screw you, I'm gone. But then again, there's 32 jobs available in this league, and if you've got one, probably kind of dumb to let go of it, But I just don't like that when that happens. It's like, well, we went window shopping, we couldn't get the guy we wanted, so we're going to keep you. That just sends a bad message, I think.
Yeah, I can see it from that angle, but I don't think that this season in particular was Pagano's fault. I still think Pagano's a decent head coach. Just they need better personnel to work with.
Yeah.
So Grigson should be gone, but that's apparently beyond the pale. We move down through the AFC standings here. Miami is coachless. They're giving the interim guy, Dan Campbell, the opportunity to interview on Friday to keep his job. But
good luck.
You saw the way that they didn't pick up at all at the end of the season. Yeah, they won that final game against New England, but I wouldn't think that anything's really going Miami's way.
I think the two weekends of the season that you really can't take away anything from is the first one and the last one. They don't tell you anything,
Well, especially if you're in that last week, if you're a team like the Dolphins, you're not making the playoffs, you're not even trying to get the bottom seed, you're going nowhere. You're going to give you all you can against the Patriots. You're going to go for it on fourth downs when you shouldn't. All you can do is play upset to a team that even then, if you beat them, it doesn't really upset anything.
No,
you go out, you play your hearts out, and we'll see you in the summer.
Yeah.
But, so I wouldn't give him his job back, but that's just me. Let's see. Mike McCoy's still there. The Browns did fire Mike Pettin and the GM, I believe, too.
Ray
right?
Farmer, yeah.
Yeah, so the Browns, this new ownership group has already gone through 3 coaches and 3 GMs. Mm-hmm. Just like when everything was going to change when they got this new ownership group, and still the same old new Cleveland Browns.
I read an article on the MMQB site that they talked to Joe Thomas, the tackle for the Browns, and every person they talked to said that the biggest problem the Browns have had over these years is that they just aren't patient enough. And honestly, I don't think Pettin did a bad job, again, with what he had to work with. I mean, okay, who's your quarterback in Cleveland? It's not Johnny Manziel. It's not Zeppo McCown. Certainly not, what's his name, the kid, Davis, Austin Davis.
Yeah,
is that
Austin
his name?
Davis,
It's not him. What do you go out and you sign Dwayne Bowe to a $9 million contract, and he caught 3 passes all year. I mean, I don't think you can blame the coaching staff for that. You know, and I think that they showed last year. This team was 7-4 after week 11. I mean, they had showed signs that they could be pretty good, but to go out and just keep hitting the reset button like this. So now you've got another 2-3 year window that the Brown fans know that they're going to be terrible again. I don't know how the people stick with it. I just don't get it.
No.
And then to solve the problem, go ahead and explain what the Browns did to address this.
Well, they signed former New York Mets and Oakland A's executive Paul DePodesta as their chief strategy officer. Now, for those uninitiated or not in the know in terms of baseball circles, you might know Paul DePodesta as Jonah Hill in Moneyball.
Uh-huh.
Not the same figure. They kind of stretched it with the likeness of what Paul DePodesta was, but he was a wide receiver in college at Harvard at 5'9", 160, but he still played football. He's going to try to help maximize their efforts in analytics and performance, and he's not going to be making personnel moves or anything like that. But he's apparently above the VP of football operations and will report directly to the owner, Jimmy Haslam. So. Moneyball coming to Cleveland.
I don't care what their logic is. I don't care what their reasoning is for it. It might be the greatest idea ever. But just how Cleveland Browns is it that they went out and hired a baseball executive to try to help this team?
Yeah, well,
that's like if your Anaheim Ducks are having trouble at goalie and they go out and they say, well, you know what? I'll bet you Buster Posey would be a good replacement. Yeah, let's try him. I mean, he wears a lot of equipment and he catches stuff. He wears a glove, right? He
blocks things.
Yeah, come on.
So the Cleveland Browns spinning the wheel once again. Tennessee Titans looks like they're going to be looking for a new coach. Mike Mularkey was their interim coach. Didn't do a whole lot with them. They have the number 1 overall pick again. Mularkey is their candidate for the job, but I don't know why you wouldn't go get Chip Kelly, right? If you have Marcus Mariota and he's available.
Well, I think because all the baggage and stuff you hear about Chip Kelly right now coming out of Philadelphia, the problems they had in the building and all that. I don't know that you want to grab him
as an offensive coordinator.
I don't know. I mean, he's okay. Marcus Mariota's there. Chip Kelly coached him in Oregon. I don't know if that's enough especially with Kelly's reputation right now, for a team to take a shot at him. Makes sense, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know what Tennessee needs. I thought Marcus Mariota was going to be something. I thought they would have a Buccaneers type season where they finish 6-10 and look like they're improving, but even worse this year with Mariota at the helm, which kind of surprising.
He was hurt a lot.
Mariota didn't have a bad year though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but he's about all they have, really. I mean, I can't name another guy on their offense. Oh, Dorial Beckham Green or Green Beckham or whatever his name is. And there's that guy. And that's about it. That's the 2 guys I know from that team. So they've got some work to do.
Yeah. Over in the NFC, the 49ers, just after 1 season with Jim Tomsula, have let the old janitor go. Not a good year. He just seems so overwhelmed by the position.
He was clearly a stopgap because the Harbaugh thing happened, and they just needed to put a body in there. That's all that was.
Yeah, you feel bad for the guy, but he just wasn't had NFL coach material, and it sucks that he had to be put out there like that. But
yeah,
did you see Jim Harbaugh's tweet?
Yes, I did.
You will reap what you sow.
Yeah, way to stay classy.
Was he talking about the Niners?
Well, I don't know what else he could have been talking about. Yeah. I mean, unless he was just really mad at the Florida Gators for some reason. I don't know, but.
No. But, just too bad.
Tomsula, he'll catch on with somebody as an assistant somewhere, so I'm not too worried about him.
Yeah, he'll still have a job in football at some point. Jim Caldwell hasn't been fired, hasn't been given any vote of confidence or anything like that. His fate will be in the hands of a new general manager, which they haven't hired yet. They're interviewing for GMs, and that GM will then choose the next coach or choose if they want to stick with Jim Caldwell. So, I mean, having experience with Jim Caldwell, I wouldn't keep him, especially at they finished 6-10.
Yeah, but remember they came off an 11-5 season last year in a playoff appearance. So, it's kind of a mixed bag with him. Which one's the real guy?
They did finish 6-2 in the second half of the year, if that means anything. But and the coaches that have been saved, Sean Payton in New Orleans. Again, there was the talk that he might go elsewhere to Indianapolis, but he's been given the vote of confidence, and Payton said, "This is where I plan on coaching, and I can't envision coaching anywhere else."
Well, I think that's kind of good. I good for the Saints. I mean, you're not going to do any better than Sean Payton.
But I think this would have been the perfect time for him to get out. I mean, Drew Brees is done.
Yeah.
The Saints' run of greatness is probably going to be done. And this would be the perfect opportunity for you to seamlessly just kind of, we did our job here and it was all very good, and I'm going to move on to another opportunity. And then maybe take over Indianapolis with Andrew Luck. Or you take over any of these open jobs that could use a Sean Payton and are on the up and up. Like, you put him in Tennessee maybe with Mariota. I think that would be a pretty good spot. But here's the thing, New Orleans.
Here's the thing too, though. Maybe with Sean Payton, maybe his ego's playing a little bit into this. Like, you know what? I want to show that I can do this without a Drew Brees. Yeah. I want to see if I can build a team on my own. Because it would be easy to step into Indianapolis with Andrew Luck and some good offensive talent, but I don't know. I was surprised. I really thought he would be moving on. I thought with you, I think you agreed that Indianapolis seemed like the perfect place for him to go, but he's going to stay put. So.
Chuck Pagano giving the extension with the Colts. Mike McCoy staying on with the Chargers.
That's a surprise to me.
Yeah,
that's all because they're moving. That's what that's all about, I think.
Yeah, they weren't good this year.
No.
I don't know how they weren't better than they were.
I don't either.
Jeff Fisher also staying on with the Rams. But supposedly Fisher doesn't want to make another move. So if the Rams do end up coming to L.A., maybe he's not the coach there still, but again, with guys like San Diego or St. Louis, it may just be up in the air depending on where the team is playing in a few months.
I mean, if you're going to go out and interview a prospective coach and you can't even tell them where you're going to be next year, that makes it very tough to hire somebody.
Right, because they got a family to take care of, and they got to buy houses and move their family, and it's a lot bigger than just hiring a guy to come on. Like, you can hire him, and he still has to do all that in whatever city you're in. Just needs to know which city it is.
Right. I think that had the fate of these two teams already been sealed, like, okay, we know they're both going to Los Angeles. Neither one of these guys keep their job.
Yeah.
But because of that, they're going to wait and see what happens.
Gus Bradley staying on with the Jaguars, although it's been kind of cleared up that next year they need to start improving in the win column, or things could get, he could get the axe there.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys. It's just like you just have so much confidence in him, And I don't know how he warrants it, but it's like everybody's like, oh, Gus Bradley, blah, blah, blah. And it's like they really haven't shown much improvement. Mm-hmm. So I hopefully they'll pull it off next year. I do want to throw this in really quick. I drove through Jacksonville last night.
Sure.
It's a shame that team doesn't look as good as their city does at night, because it was just amazing. I mean, it's just a really beautiful city to drive through at night. Now, in the daytime, it might look like a dump. I don't know. But at night, it looks really cool. So you got that going for you, Jacksonville.
And Jason Garrett staying on with the Cowboys. Jerry Jones confirmed that there was no thoughts of replacing Garrett after a 4-12 year with the Cowboys.
Right, and I have not given a single thought to the fact that it's 20 in Ohio today while I sit here in Florida either. Yeah.
I mean, Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones.
Right.
But that's the roundup of the Black Monday, as it was after every NFL season. Playoffs start this week, and this is going to be a good playoffs, I think. I like the matchups. I like the potential matchups moving forward.
I like the matchups a lot, too. I think it's going to be a fun playoff.
College, wrap up some of the bowls and get into the playoff action. We left off on Tuesday the 29th. Number 17 Baylor knocked off number 10 North Carolina 49-38. Baylor looked pretty impressive there, but in a game that didn't really matter, and maybe North Carolina wasn't number 10 in the country. They probably shouldn't have been, but they went on a good roll at the end of the year, had a good showing in the ACC championship, but Baylor made up a little bit for a lost season.
I think with North Carolina, they're kind of like the Jets. If you'd went to them at the beginning of the season and said you'll finish 11-3 and lose to Baylor in the Russell Athletic Bowl, they'd be okay with that, I think.
Yeah.
Carolina fans.
Leonard Fournette, 4 touchdowns and 212 yards on 29 carries in a 56-27 win for LSU over Texas Tech in the Advocare V100 Texas Bowl.
Not a surprise at all in that one.
In the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, Cal and Jared Goff just opened up the floodgates against Arizona.
Yeah.
6 touchdown passes for Jared Goff, 467 yards in the air, and the Golden Bears knock off the Falcons 55-36. Jared Goff, welcome to the NFL.
No kidding. That's almost unfair to do that to that poor Air Force team. They're just overmatched against a guy like that.
Yeah. In the Mountain West Conference play, the Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl.
What a ridiculous. Jeez. Okay, go ahead.
The Nevada 4-4 in the Mountain West knocks off Colorado State 5-3 in the Mountain West, 28-23. In the Arizona Bowl down in Tucson.
And the winner of this game gets to go play in a different bowl game against somebody from a different conference. That's ridiculous. All right.
It's really dumb. Moving on to Wednesday, December 30th, an entertaining national funding holiday bowl. Wisconsin knocks off number 25 USC late for a 21-23 win. The Wisconsin quarterback had an interesting injury in this game. He got sacked, and one of the USC guys, as he was kind of running forward, stepped right on his face mask, and the cleat went into the helmet, scraped off a big portion of the middle of his nose.
Oh, my God.
And he was bleeding all over the place. They had to patch him up. But he was able to lead Wisconsin into field goal range for the game winner.
This is a surprise to me. I didn't think that Wisconsin could hang with USC. I know that Wisconsin's got the better record, but USC is a talented team. I'm surprised by this one.
10-win season for Wisconsin, though.
Not bad, yeah.
Auburn gets some SEC revenge and knocks off Memphis 31-10.
Not surprised by that one too much.
Mississippi State knocks off NC State. Louisville knocks off Texas A&M 27-21.
That one surprises me.
Surprising, but Texas A&M had their quarterbacks are all leaving. All of Texas A&M quarterbacks are like transferring by the day, and so they were down to like their 4th string quarterback starting this game on a week's practice.
Okay, well maybe I'm not so surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Louisville went up 20-7 in the first and held on there, but tumultuous situation in College Station.
Apparently.
The Aggies. But then we move on to New Year's Eve and the New Year's Six Bowls. On New Year's Eve, we called pretty much every single game in the big bowls. In the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Houston, number 18, knocked off number 9, Florida State, 38-24. We called it, Greg. We
did. Well, it's like we said, Houston just wanted to be there more. Florida State used to playing for the national championship, and the Cougars just said, "Hey, we're happy to be here," and they took care of business.
Houston 13-1. They finished their season.
Not bad.
Also on New Year's Eve, the playoff games.
For Pete's sake.
This was apparently. I thought this was just this was a quirk. It's supposed to be like this 7 out of the next 10 years.
Okay, this is my question with this. And you've heard it a million different places. We talked about it last week. We talked about it for 2 weeks. Why did you not have these games on Saturday night, January 2nd? You got all to yourself. Yep.
I don't know. They're committed to having this New Year's Eve thing, and because of the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl won't move off New Year's Day, so they have to when the playoff games aren't either the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl, and they can have the other playoff games during the day, they won't do it.
To move to the next day, because this year it would have been perfect. You'd have had it on a Saturday night. Yeah. The Rose Bowl's just got to get out of its own way at this point. I mean, you're being ridiculous now. It's as simple as that.
The Rose Bowl has to play on January 1st.
I understand that, but still, come on. And here's the thing, too. Okay, you've got your 2 marquee games of the college football schedule here. And the next day, we get to watch, Stanford beat the hell out of Iowa, Ohio State beat Notre Dame. I mean, come on. It just seems weird to have the 2 playoff games and then have more football after that. It just seems strange to me. No,
it should be the first and second. Or at the very least this year, it should be the first and second.
Yeah.
But they want to own New Year's Eve. They want to, all the spin that they've been putting out there. Excuse me, all the spin they're putting out there. And it just, the ratings were way down.
36%. That's a lot.
Yeah, and they put all these things like, oh, well, we kind of expected it. It was the second year. Everyone was excited for the first year. Maybe you're not so excited for the second year. There's different matchups, and it's New Year's Eve. So it's New Year's Eve, and you're going to get lower ratings. Why do you do it? And ESPN supposedly begged them, like, guys, please, just for everybody's sake, move the games. And they wouldn't do it. Yeah. So we're stuck with the situation we had.
And I've heard we're going to change viewing habits. You are not going to change the viewing habits of history, because that's what you're up against here. You're up against New Year's Eve. People are not going to change just to watch college football. It's not going to happen.
Right. And it's not like the Super Bowl where it's a Sunday in February and it has people gather to watch the Super Bowl at parties, because that's the only thing going on February 2nd.
Exactly.
When it's New Year's Eve, people have plans. Like, it's not like it's any random Saturday that you can say, okay, yeah, we're going to plan to go to the college football game. This is a day. It's a very specific day. And they said, it's kind of like NBA on Christmas. No, it's not.
No, different thing entirely.
Those are regular season games that you put on the background while you're hanging out with your family at home. Not going out for a night on the town to go get, celebrate the New Year and party and have a good time.
Well, not only that, but, okay, let's move those NBA games to Christmas Eve and see how well they do. Yeah. You're going to have the same problem. And what's going to really drive this point home to them is when they play the national championship game on Monday, and the ratings are right back to where they were last year. And they're going to go, well, wait a minute, because believe me, the national championship game, that's not going to drop 36%. It'll be right there with what it was last year.
No, especially with the matchup we have based on the teams that we got. So the first playoff game was the Capital One Orange Bowl, number 1 Clemson, number 4 Oklahoma. And the Sooners came out tough. They played tight with Clemson for a half, but in the second half it was all Clemson. They shut down the Sooners and cruise out to a 37-17 win. Clemson, still the only undefeated team in the country, 14-0, and they looked every bit of it in this game. I thought they were very impressive, beating on Oklahoma.
I think Oklahoma's exactly who we thought they were all along. I don't think this team was – I mean, okay, we have watched the playoff game and we saw some of the bowl games. And again, I'm not making a case for this. I'm just saying, do you really think that Oklahoma's better than Ohio State or Notre Dame? I don't. They're not better than Stanford.
No.
No way.
No.
So the committee's got it. We've talked about it all season. They've got to get past the 2-loss stigma, because, I mean, let's be honest about it. Stanford should have been there over – it's just ridiculous. It's just Oklahoma had no business being there, and they proved it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Stanford gives them a better game. Who's to tell? They probably would have. Ohio State could have been good. Notre Dame would have been better. But it's also a matter of circumstances.
Yeah.
Oklahoma has 2 losses. Well, they got the second loss in this game to Clemson. But the first loss, they only had 1 loss. It was a bad loss, a 50-point loss, or losing to Texas. Not by 50, but losing to Texas, who was bad this year.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still 1, where Stanford had 2, and Notre Dame had 2. And Ohio State lost at the wrong time, and they didn't win their conference.
Yeah.
So I completely understand why they chose Oklahoma based on the criteria they've set forward. But I think it's clear to everybody now that Oklahoma wasn't a better team than the teams that were on the outside looking in.
Well, I've not been a proponent of this, and I'm still kind of not. But I think this season really gives you an idea of why maybe going to a 6 or an 8-team playoff wouldn't be the worst thing, because I just think you clearly had 3 teams outside of this playoff that were better than one of the teams in it.
Yeah. If we go to a 16 playoff, you don't have to change the structure too badly. So you would have number 6 Stanford. They would play who? Number 3 Michigan State?
Right.
And then you'd have number 5 was Iowa, and I guess you leave them in there. And they'd play Oklahoma. Iowa, Oklahoma, probably not good, but then you move on. You say maybe Stanford beats Michigan State, and then Stanford would play Clemson, and Alabama would play, maybe Oklahoma if they beat Iowa. But you let everybody else kind of sort it on the field, because this is also a different situation. We're still trying to figure out what's going on. Last year, we clearly had a upper echelon of teams that deserve to be there, and maybe you had a team, the TCU and Baylor's that are left out that say, oh, we should have been there, but then you had the 4 seed that got in win the whole thing.
Right.
So it was validated. Then you come into this year where there's not really that clear-cut elite. There's a lot of middle ground. You have one undefeated team, and you come to where you are now in kind of lackluster semifinals. The teams that are outside, there's arguments for and against them, and you're kind of in the middle. So it's something to gauge as we move forward into the next few years.
And I want to add, I'm going to completely reverse my position here just to show you the other side of this. Stanford and Ohio State have nobody but themselves to blame for not being there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ohio State. If Ohio State beats Michigan State, they're playing to defend their national championship.
If Stanford doesn't lose to Northwestern at the beginning,
right?
And who'd they lose to late? Oregon. If they beat Oregon.
Yep. So are Ohio State and Stanford better than probably Oklahoma or Michigan State? Yes, but you know what? They didn't do it when it counted. So I guess you could look at it both ways.
Same with Notre Dame. I mean, if Notre Dame beats Stanford late in the year, they have a much better argument to be in over Oklahoma than they did before, because then they have one loss and it's to the number one team in the country, and maybe you put them in, but things change.
You can go either way with it, really. I mean, you can say, okay, we need more teams. You can say, hey, you know what? They had their chance and they blew it. Simple as that.
But that's what I mean about this year is that there's arguments for and against everybody this year, so it's kind of a mess. There isn't that upper echelon of teams. And maybe we have it because you get Clemson, who's undefeated. They've won every game. They've looked very, very impressive in all their games, and they get to go against the equally impressive after a 38-0 just demolition of Michigan State. Number 2, Alabama. You could tell that this Alabama team, they remember what happened last year. Played a Big Ten team. They played them, in the same general area, the Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Dallas, New Orleans. They were the favorite. They were going against a power type team that nobody gave them a chance, and they weren't going to let anybody give them a chance. So Alabama just a complete beatdown of the Spartans.
And you know what the surprising thing is about this Alabama beatdown? Look at the stat line. Derrick Henry, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. Okay, the 2 T's are nice, but look at Jake Coker, 286 yards, 2 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
That's what we said last time we talked about this game, is that if Alabama could pass the ball, there was no chance Michigan State was going to win this game, and that's exactly what happened. 138
of those yards and both touchdowns to Calvin Ridley, who looked really good in this game.
Yep.
So, again, if Alabama can pass the ball, then if you have to defend the pass, that makes Derrick Henry so much more dangerous. And that Alabama defense, posting the shutout, and just all season, you've seen how solid that unit's been. They're just as good as they've ever been.
Well, we talked about 5-6 weeks ago. We were talking about it. You said when it's all said and done, Alabama's going to be there in the thick of this, and here they are in the national championship game now. So,
yep. So next Monday we'll have the national championship game in Glendale, Arizona. Number 1 Clemson, number 2 Alabama. They were number 1 and number 2 for a majority of the season, and they're destined to be where they are now. And so I think this will be a great game. This should have happened all year. And the 2 best teams, I think, clearly over the course of the season.
Yeah, who do you like in it?
Man, I want Clemson.
I do too,
because I think we both are in agreement that we hate Alabama, but
I don't hate them as much as I used to after we kicked their butts last year. But I'm still not crazy about them.
But man, they look so solid, and if they can get the passing game working, they're so solid. But I like Deshaun Watson much more as a quarterback for Clemson. Derrick Henry's probably the best running back in that game. It's going to be It's going to be an impressive game. I think. I think it really comes down to, can Alabama's defense stop Deshaun Watson?
That's the trick.
Because I think Clemson's defense will be good enough. They'll be able to play Jake Coker straight up, and maybe Derrick Henry gets his. But
I'm not confident.
It's going to come down to Clemson's offense and Alabama's D.
I'm not confident that Jake Coker can go out and go 25 for 30 for 286 yards again. I'm just not confident he can do that, especially not against Clemson. It's one thing to do it against Michigan State. This is Clemson, who's 14-0, and they're really, really good. I mean, this is not an illusion we're looking at here. They're not like Florida State was a couple of years ago. This is a good football team.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Clemson. I think Clemson wins the national championship this year. First time since whatever it was, 83?
85?
82, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. I'm going to go with Clemson, too. It's going to be an interesting game, though, for sure. On to Monday, Christian McCaffrey.
Jeez.
Jesus Christ, man. First play of the game, runs 75 yards. And you just know Iowa on the very first play is like, oh, no.
Poor Iowa. I mean,
today's not going to happen for us.
They just didn't even know what hit them in that game. You know, I mean, you want to talk about a team making a statement. Man, Stanford just oh, my goodness, it was just ugly.
Can we redo the Heisman voting? Is that possible? Because Christian McCaffrey got robbed. Just robbed.
Well, yeah.
This game. But, yeah, Stanford's up 35-0 at halftime and cruises to a 45-16 win over Iowa. The first time those teams had ever played each other.
Really?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So big win for the Cardinal. Poor Iowa. I mean, you played valiantly all year. You had a good showing in that loss, the Big Ten title game, and you show up on the biggest stage you could possibly be on, and ugh.
Yeah. And I wonder if Ohio State's ever going to play Iowa again. It seems like it's been forever now, but anyway.
Maybe next year.
But yeah.
Speaking of Ohio State, in the Battle Frog Fiesta Bowl, I thought this was going to be the best game of the day of all bowl season, and didn't really turn out that way.
Nope.
Ohio State was very impressive, 28-14 at half, and they just pulled away slightly, and they outmuscled and beat up Notre Dame. Ezekiel Elliott, 27 carries, 149 yards, and a Fiesta Bowl record 4 touchdown runs as the Buckeyes knock off the Fighting Irish 44-28.
See, now maybe Zeke Elliott was right after the Michigan State game when he said I didn't get the ball enough, because clearly when he gets the ball enough, they're pretty good. But I'm happy with this. I thought the Buckeyes would win, and I didn't think it would be. I thought it'd be a little closer than this, but I'll take it. I'm very 12-1. You can't complain. I mean, it's hard to defend a national championship, and I'll take a 12-1 season and a Fiesta Bowl win. That's fine by me.
Yeah, and whenever they do the final rankings for everything, Ohio State will end up maybe 3 or 4.
Yep.
At the end of it.
Definitely.
Because you won't have the playoff rankings to deal with. But when it comes to the AP, they'll be right up at the top with everybody else. So. And
they'll be back fighting for another national title next year. So it's not like this was a miracle run last year that won't ever happen again.
Yeah. And then the other New Year's Six Bowl, another one that got away. Ole Miss came in looking to make a statement, and they made one 48-20 over Oklahoma State. A big win for the.
See, I thought Oklahoma State was going to play well in that game, but Ole Miss was just all over them, and it was never even close.
No. Some other interesting games from New Year's Day. Tennessee beats Northwestern 45-6. Then the 2 ranked teams. Tennessee looked pretty good there.
Yeah.
Finished 9-4, not bad. In the Outback Bowl. Michigan beat the crap out of Florida, 41-7 in the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl. Again, Florida has no offense.
No, clearly not.
No, and Michigan had a pretty good defense, and their offense showed up pretty well, and they get the big win.
I got to say, Jim Harbaugh did an incredible job with that Michigan Wolverine team this year. No one in the world had them going 10-3 this season. No one. I mean, I knew they'd be better, but no one thought they'd have a 10-win season this year. So
he's
nice
only the 3rd coach in Michigan history with a 10-win season and a bowl win in their first year as head coach.
Yeah.
The other was some guy in like 1920 or something. And the other guy, Brady Hoke, who won 11 games and won the Sugar Bowl in his first year as head coach of Michigan.
I think they beat Florida that year too, didn't they? Or
West Virginia. Virginia Tech.
Okay.
Yeah. On to January 2nd. Speaking of West Virginia, an absolute back-and-forth shootout with Arizona State in the Motel 6 Cactus Bowl. Arizona State gave this game a freaking way at the end. Arizona State, they blocked a extra point and ran it back for the 2-point conversion, so they were up by 2 the majority of the game. They just had to hold West Virginia out of field goal or out of field goal range, or hold them, I guess, and win the game. And West Virginia broke through. They exchanged the lead at least 6 or 7 times in the second half as the Mountaineers beat the Sun Devils. You called it. I stuck with my team, but you called West Virginia 43-42 over Arizona
I like those Mountaineers, man. They're always good for some points.
And Chase Field in Phoenix, not a bad football stadium.
Yeah,
you converted it pretty well, I thought.
Cool.
It worked. But the most entertaining bowl game of the season so far, the Valero Alamo Bowl. Oregon and TCU. TCU playing without Trevon Boykin, who punched a cop in a bar last week. That'll get you suspended for a game.
More than likely, yeah.
So Oregon comes in. Vernon Adams plays great in the first half. Oregon's up 31-0 at halftime. The Ducks are going to cruise to a victory. And then Vernon Adams gets hurt in the third quarter. And then TCU starts to score and score and score, and the Horned Frogs tie it up at 31-all, going into overtime. They tied for the biggest comeback in bowl history, and not just Alamo Bowl, but bowl history.
And that's you say bowl history. We're talking like 8,000 games, and that's just last season.
So they go into overtime. Both teams exchange touchdowns. They exchange field goals. TCU gets a touchdown to go ahead, and they hold Oregon in the third overtime for a 47-41 victory. TCU wins. Gary Patterson, the coach, changed shirts at halftime.
I heard
black
that.
to purple, and that spurred on the Horned Frogs to their big bowl win in San Antonio.
Led by the immortal Bram Kohlhausen.
Yes.
There you go.
351 yards, 2 TDs. Not bad for the backup quarterback.
Not bad at all, yeah.
Georgia knocks off Penn State in the Tax Slayer Bowl.
That was,
Didn't that used to be the Gator Bowl?
it might have been. I don't know. I've lost track over all these years. Give Penn State a little bit of credit. They were down big and came back and made a game out of that. So nice job by the Nittany Lions. But
Arkansas beats the crap out of Kansas State in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl.
not a surprise there.
And that's the last bowl of the bowl season before the national championship game next Monday. The College Football Playoff National Championship game presented by AT&T, University of Phoenix Stadium, Glendale, Arizona, Monday the 11th. Number 1, 14-0 Clemson. Number 2, 13-1 Alabama. The Crimson Tide opens as a 6.5-point favorite in that game. Whether we're picking with our heart or our heads, we're both going with Clemson over the Crimson Tide. But I think this is going to be one hell of a championship game.
It should be, yeah. I just, we've been waiting for Clemson to – I hate to keep using Clemson as a verb, but we've been waiting for them to Clemson all season. They haven't done it, and I don't think they're going to do it now. I think they beat the Tide and win the national championship.
We'll see. I'd like to see it happen. But good luck to Clemson on Monday. And I believe that's it. You got anything else before we head off into the sunset, Greg?
I guess go Packers and just try not to embarrass us too much this Sunday.
Go football. I don't really have anybody to root for. Just,
go Chiefs, too. Go Chiefs.
My college teams, my college team's lost. My pro team, has been successfully put to rest for the season. Go football. I just want some good games, and hopefully none of the bad teams win.
All right.
For Greg, I'm Zach. This has been basically a football show. Follow us on all of our platforms, etc., etc. You know where to go. Listen to the rest of the Basically a Podcast Network. Basically, the sports show will return at some point.
Yes. Hopefully in the next couple of days.
The next couple of days.
Just been, with me moving and all that and everything, it's just been a busy, and the holiday season and all that, but we it's not gone. It will be back. We have plenty to talk about once we come back. Yes, we do. Especially some stuff concerning football elsewhere. Enjoy the football. This has been basically a football show.
Good evening and welcome, everybody. I'm Kirk Herbstreit along with Brent Musburger.